You're the first millionaire in your family's history. Congratulations. But before you celebrate, consider something strange. If you showed your bank account to your great-grandfather, he would probably think you were unimaginably wealthy. If you showed the same account to a billionaire, they might think you're only getting started. So which one is right? The answer depends on how we choose to measure wealth. And that question is far more complicated than it appears. Because becoming the first millionaire in your family's history is not really a story about money. It's a story about time. Imagine standing in a room with every ancestor who helped create your existence. Your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, then the generations before them. The faces become unfamiliar, the names disappear, the stories are forgotten. But the people were real. If we assume roughly 25 years per generation, then just 10 generations takes us back about 250 years. 20 generations takes us back 500 years. The further you go, the larger the number becomes. 1,000 years ago, there were thousands of people whose lives eventually contributed to yours. They never met you, they never knew you would exist. Yet every decision they made affected the probability that one day you would be here. Now imagine telling all of them something. Not that you became famous, not that you became powerful, not that you changed the world. Simply this: you accumulated more financial capital than anyone in the history of your family. For most of human history, that statement would have sounded impossible. Today, it sounds achievable. And that difference tells us something important about the world we live in. To understand why, we need to understand how unusual wealth actually is. Modern society often creates the illusion that millionaires are everywhere. Social media is filled with luxury cars, expensive watches, private jets, and entrepreneurs claiming extraordinary success. Spend enough time online and becoming a millionaire starts to feel normal, expected even. But history tells a different story. For thousands of years, the overwhelming majority of human beings never accumulated significant wealth. Most people lived close to subsistence. Their lives were dominated by survival, food, shelter, disease, conflict. The average person wasn't deciding how to allocate investment capital. They were trying to survive the winter. Economic historians often describe human civilization before the Industrial Revolution as a world of limited growth. For centuries, living standards improved very slowly. Many families lived lives remarkably similar to those of their grandparents, and their grandparents before them. The idea that an ordinary individual could dramatically improve their economic position within a single lifetime was relatively rare. Then, something changed. The Industrial Revolution transformed productivity. Technological progress accelerated. Education expanded. Global trade increased. Capital markets developed. For perhaps the first time in history, large numbers of ordinary people gained access to economic opportunities that had previously been unimaginable. In many ways, becoming a millionaire today is not only a personal achievement. It is also evidence that you were born into one of the most economically extraordinary periods in human history. But that raises another question. If opportunity has expanded so dramatically, why doesn't everyone become wealthy? This question has fascinated economists for decades. One of the most influential researchers studying economic mobility is economist Raj Chetty. Using data from millions of individuals, Chetty and his colleagues explored a simple question. How much does the environment you're born into affect your future? The answer was significant. Children raised in different neighborhoods, schools, and social environments often experience dramatically different economic outcomes later in life. Talent mattered, effort mattered, but opportunity mattered too. And opportunity was not distributed equally. This creates a difficult reality. When someone becomes the first millionaire in their family's history, their achievement is rarely explained by a single factor. It is usually the result of many forces working together: personal discipline, timing, education, geography, technology, economic conditions, relationships, and, whether we like to admit it or not, luck. This is where the story becomes uncomfortable. Most people prefer simple explanations for success. We want to believe wealth is entirely earned, or entirely inherited, entirely deserved, or entirely unfair. Reality is more complicated. Imagine two equally intelligent people born in different centuries. One is born in rural Europe in the year 1500. The other is born in a developed economy in the 21st century. Who has a greater chance of becoming a millionaire? The comparison sounds ridiculous, but it reveals something important. The second person benefits from centuries of accumulated progress: electricity, modern medicine, the internet, global markets, instant communication, financial systems, universities, infrastructure. The opportunities available today were built by generations of people who never lived to see the results. In a strange way, every modern success story is partly a historical success story. Which brings us back to your family. People often imagine wealth as an individual accomplishment. A single person works hard, makes good decisions, and eventually succeeds. There is truth in that narrative, but there is another perspective. Imagine that every generation in your family was running a relay race. Each generation receives a baton, then passes it forward. Some generations pass forward land. Others pass forward education. Some pass forward strong values. Others pass forward trauma, debt, addiction, poverty, or instability. Nobody starts from zero. Every generation inherits something. The question is whether the baton becomes heavier or lighter over time. Perhaps your grandparents never accumulated wealth because they lived through economic hardship. Perhaps your parents sacrificed opportunities so their children could access education. Perhaps someone in your family moved countries, changed careers, worked extra jobs, or endured extraordinary challenges simply to create a slightly better starting point for the next generation. From this perspective, becoming the first millionaire in your family's history looks less like an isolated event and more like the result of hundreds of years of accumulated effort. You may have crossed the finish line, but many people helped build the road. And yet, becoming the first creates a unique challenge. Because first-generation wealth is fundamentally different from inherited wealth. Imagine two individuals with identical net worths. Each has $1 million. One inherited the money, the other created it. Financially, they appear identical. Psychologically, they often do not. The first person inherits not only wealth, but also knowledge, a framework, a playbook, examples. The second person often builds everything from scratch. They become the experiment. The first case benefits from established systems. The second must create those systems. Researchers who study wealth frequently observe that first-generation wealth creators experience a unique form of uncertainty. Even after becoming financially successful, many continue to think and behave as though resources are scarce. They remain cautious, protective, risk-aware, because their identity was formed long before the money arrived. This leads to a fascinating paradox. The moment someone becomes wealthy enough to stop worrying about money is often the moment they become most aware of everything that money cannot solve. Money can purchase comfort, it can purchase security, it can purchase convenience, but it cannot purchase meaning, it cannot purchase purpose, and it certainly cannot purchase time. This realization appears repeatedly in research on wealth and happiness. For decades, economists and psychologists have studied the relationship between income and well-being. Their findings suggest that while financial security dramatically improves life, the relationship eventually weakens. Each additional dollar matters less than the previous one. The excitement fades, the novelty disappears, the human mind adapts, and suddenly the achievement that once seemed life-changing becomes normal. This is known as hedonic adaptation, and it may explain why becoming the first millionaire in your family's history often feels different than people imagine. The number itself is important, but numbers have a strange habit of losing their emotional power. What remains is the impact, the opportunities created, the risks avoided, the future altered. This is where the story becomes larger than one person, because the real significance of first-generation wealth may not be what it does for you. It may be what it does for people who come after you. Imagine a child growing up in a financially stable household. They experience a different world than a child growing up under constant financial stress. Different conversations, different expectations, different opportunities, different assumptions about what is possible. Research consistently shows that these advantages compound over time. Small differences become larger differences. Larger differences become entirely different life trajectories. This means that the first millionaire in a family does more than accumulate capital. They alter probability. They change the range of possible futures. And perhaps that is the true meaning of wealth. Not consumption, not status, not luxury, but optionality. The ability to choose, the ability to say no, the ability to take risks, the ability to pursue opportunities that previous generations could not afford to pursue. Viewed this way, wealth becomes something much larger than a bank balance. It becomes a transfer of possibility, and that transfer can echo across decades, maybe even centuries. Which brings us to one final question. Who was the richest person in your family before you? Most people don't know. Perhaps it was a farmer who owned land, a merchant, a craftsman, a business owner, someone whose story disappeared long ago. Their wealth may have vanished, their name may have been forgotten, yet their decisions still influenced the generations that followed. The same may one day be true for you. 100 years from now, your descendants may know very little about your daily life. They may not know where you worked, what car you drove, what phone you carried, or what your investment portfolio looked like. But they may live in a world shaped by the consequences of your decisions. And that's why becoming the first millionaire in your family's history is not simply a financial milestone. It is a historical one. Because for generations, your family was moving toward a future nobody could see. And one day, perhaps without fully realizing it, you became the point where the trajectory changed. Not the end of the story, not the final destination, just the moment the direction shifted. The moment a family's financial history took a turn it had never taken before. And the most remarkable part? The people who made that moment possible may never know it happened. But their efforts are written into it all the same.